What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. It's Thursday, time to go game by game, talk about all the players I'd be starting and sitting this week. First up, Thursday night game, Seahawks at Cardinals, 43.5 point total. Seahawks, 1.5 point road favorites. For the Seahawks, I'm pretty sure Charbonnet is going to play, but that game's tonight. You guys will know. He's been a full participant this week, although obviously it's been a very condensed week. They probably only had like 2 actual practices this week, but it was never expected to be a long-term injury, so I think he's going to play. If not, I mean, it really doesn't change all that much, except it makes Ken Walker an obvious auto start. But whether Charbonnet plays or doesn't play, probably wouldn't play him. 2.1 yards per carry on the season, even in a plus matchup. I just don't see it. Like, unless you're in a really deep format, you have a ton of injuries at running back, I would not really trust him coming off of injury as the backup running back. Doesn't make a lot of sense to play. It's not like this is a spot where we're expecting both teams to score 30, 34 points, so I wouldn't play him. But I would play Ken Walker either way. I would play JSN. At this point, I would consider JSN like a top 5 wide receiver rest of season. Obviously play him. And then again, I think you have to kind of keep rolling with Ken Walker at running back 2. I have no idea what the split is going to be, but it's the third best matchup for running back yards per carry. It's a top 7 matchup for running back receptions. He's running back 15 in fantasy despite a dud in week 1 and not ripping off a long play yet. He's got some like longer plays, but you know, a classic Ken Walker play where he scores a 60, 70 yard touchdown. He's got that in his range of outcomes. It's going to happen at some point this season. Hasn't happened yet. So again, I think you're just playing them. And I would monitor the split between Cooper Kupp and Torrey Horton. I would not play either one of them, but monitor the split. I'm hoping Horton gets more snaps this week, but typically doesn't always happen for rookies in that like Thursday short week. Not like they had a bunch of ramp up, to kind of implement him more into the game plan from, last week to Thursday. So usually you don't see that jump. We might see the jump after the mini bye, after their actual bye. So I'm hoping it happens. I'm not overly optimistic. He gets more snaps and more touches. On the Cardinals side, obviously done for the year is James Conner. That's going to consolidate the offense a little bit more. I mean, it basically just kind of makes Trey Benson like a discount James Conner because he's not as good, but it at least makes it so we kind of know exactly where the volume is going here. I'm going to be curious if this impacts their pass rate over expectation, their pass run split in the red zone. My guess is that it will, right? You're obviously going to trust James Conner more in the red zone than Trey Benson and the backups. When the game is close, you're going to trust the passing attack a little bit more now than you will trust these backup running backs. So I think that'll benefit Marv, benefit Trey McBride. Worth noting that wide receivers do have the worst matchup against Seattle on the team. It's not an impossible matchup, but they are good at defending the wide receiver position. As things stand right now, I have Kyler Murray as my quarterback 16, Marvin Harrison Jr. as my wide receiver 32, McBride tight end 1, obviously play him, and then Benson running back 25, but I do think I'll end up in the projections getting him to that like running back 18 to 20 range. I think if you have Trey Benson, you playing him this week, the expectation is he won't be featured, but he'll have enough of a workload to where you're going to want to play him at running back 2. So if you have him, I would just play him. Usually Kyler does project better than this just because of the mobility. So I am a tad nervous playing him tonight. If you had another option that does project the top 10 play this week, I'd probably go with them. But I also know it's likely, if you drafted Kyler, maybe you just didn't draft a backup at all. And I wouldn't be like jumping on free agency to get a replacement. And then it's it with Marv. Definitely been disappointing so far this season. Has a touchdown in week 1. Should have had like a 60-yard touchdown this last week. We just completely dropped it. Actually dropped 2 potential touchdowns. Should have had a really long touchdown that he dropped in the end zone, and another one where he was completely wide open deep downfield and just completely dropped that one as well. So could have had a monster day, decided not to. I have him in one of my 3 leagues. I have to play him as I wait on Rashee Rice to return, but at this point I feel like I'm playing him under protest. Like, it's just really annoying that he's getting the routes. Like, it's weird because like last year it was because they weren't utilizing him correctly. This year they're actually giving him the red zone usage. They're giving him those horizontal routes across the middle of the field. Like, big time plays are the potential here. Like, a lot of upside in the route tree he is running. He just has to catch the ball. And like, we didn't think that would be an issue for Marv, but apparently it is. Next up, we have the Dublin game, Vikings at Steelers again at Steelers. The game's in Dublin. 41-point total. Vikings 2.5-point favorites. A reminder that this is a 9:30 a.m. Eastern kickoff. That is 6:30 a.m. Pacific. So if you got guys in this game, set your lineups Saturday night. For the Vikings side, they're in a good spot. They were in a good spot last week, and they went nuclear. It scored like 48 points, which is pretty crazy, but good spot against the Steelers defense that's been really, really bad this season. They let up over 30 points in each of their first 2 games, and then probably should have scored 30 points or allowed 30 points to the Patriots last week, but New England decided to just beat themselves. Awful turnovers at the goal line. The Vikings also get Jordan Addison back from suspension this week, which is going to help them sustain drives more consistently, convert more in the red zone. I would consider both Justin Jefferson and Jordan Mason must starts. Hawkinson is my tight end 12. Addison, right now, wide receiver 38. It's going to be nice to probably see him play before playing him, but I have him in a league where I also have T. Higgins, and I am playing Addison over T. Higgins. And then Wentz is my quarterback 17. So for Wentz especially, it really comes down to what other options you have at quarterback. I think he's fine, but I also think he somewhat lacks ceiling. So I don't think you have to play Carson Wentz this week. Overall, it's a good matchup. Great offensive coordinator, even with backup quarterback play. It was so bad before with McCarthy that I really think that Wentz is probably a step up from what they were having before. So I would say if it's close, I would lean towards a Vikings player this week. I really think that the matchup is good. Kevin O'Connell is probably going to want to put on a show in Dublin. So I don't know. I think I would play Vikings players if you can this week. But again, I don't think you have to stream Carson Wentz. Then the Steelers side, the Vikings are obviously a matchup we look to avoid. The Steelers also haven't exactly been a gold mine in fantasy this season. I think that Warren is a really strong player at running back too. I think if you have him, you're playing him. He's getting really strong usage recently. But aside from him, Metcalf, wide receiver 36, Calvin Austin, wide receiver 54, Aaron Rodgers, quarterback 30. I really just wouldn't want to be playing Steelers players this week if I didn't have to. I will say that tight ends do have the best matchup, but more of DFS guys. I wouldn't really want to be playing them in redraft leagues. It really is Warren, and then if you have to play DK Metcalf, do it. 1 o'clock games kick off with a close one between the Saints and the Bills. 48.5-point total. Bills 15.5-point home favorites. For the Saints, I'm projecting 0.56 rushing touchdowns, only 1.1 passing touchdowns on average. That is obviously very, very bad. It's also highly concerning that Kamara has an 8% target share in the season, even in 3 trailing game scripts. If they had 1-2 of these games, gotten up in one of them, you'd be okay, it was game script. Normally, they're not going to win. Normally, he's going to have targets. They have lost every single game so far, and he has an 8% target share. He's only my running back 26 right now. Olave, wide receiver 19. Jawan, tight end 7. And then Shaheed is my wide receiver 39. I do wish they would up Shaheed's 16.5% target share. I wish that was closer, 19 or 20%. Maybe we could trust him a little bit more. I do think long-term it's going to be closer to that 18%. I do think that eventually he's going to hit on some big plays. That's been a staple of his game throughout his career, and everything's been so close to the line of scrimmage that it really just hasn't happened yet for Shaheed. But I do still consider him a boom-bust flex play. He's done busting 3 times so far this season, but eventually Shaheed is going to have a really nice day. Eventually, some of these targets that are just consistently going to Olave, I think Olave is going to have a great target share all season, but I don't think that every single week he's going to be peppered with targets to where sometimes there's going to be a game where Shaheed has more targets, Shaheed hits downfield, and we kind of see that target share even out a little bit more. But yeah, the yards perception is super low for both of them right now, but I think you have to play Olave. I think you have to play Jawan. I think, again, Kamara, fine in the flex spot or fine, maybe better as a low-end running back too. You would like to see the offense hit a little bit more. It's hit so far in terms of the volume is there. So that's what we love Saints players is they're running a ton of plays, they're playing fast, and they're throwing it a lot. And so it's really nice to see volume rack up. But it would also be nice to see some volume maybe go away because they hit for a downfield play and everything isn't 5 yards downfield. So hopefully we see that at some point against the Bills. I don't know how optimistic I am. Then on the Bills side, again, the Saints play fast. It hasn't translated into their opponents getting a million plays, but the potential is there. And Buffalo has actually run the fewest plays per game in the league so far this season. So there's a chance here that we get fast pace from the Saints, that they don't do very well. We get short fields, we get more volume, and we get a spot where Buffalo scores 40 points on decent play volume and a lot of different people hit. I'm projecting about 32 points. The expected total here is 31.75. So the expectation is we get like 30 to 34 points on average. Again, that means they can push into the 40s. I think Allen and Cook are obviously must starts. I think everyone knows that. Dalton Kincaid right now is my tight end 10. He's been hitting with touchdowns. He's been hitting. The play volume still isn't amazing. You would love to see Kincaid out there just running a route on a higher percentage of dropbacks, but he's been playing much better this season. And so it depends what else you have, but he's a pretty good play this week. I think the toughest call is with their wide receivers. Right now, they're all projected in that like 40 to 50 range. And really, you're not playing Palmer. So it's really just Keon Coleman and Shakir. Again, as we talked about before, Keon is the one who has more big play potential, more red zone upside, but Shakir is the one who could rack up, 5-6 receptions and add on that touchdown. Scoring format, full PPR is going to benefit Shakir more. Obviously, standard scoring format is going to benefit Keon Coleman a little bit more. I think in like a standard format, 2 wide receivers, 1 flex, you're probably not playing either one of them. As you expand in 3 wide receiver, 2 flex leagues, both of them become more viable because the odds in this matchup are one of them is probably going to hit for a touchdown. One of them is probably going to hit for a big play. Guessing who it's going to be is going to be very difficult. It's tough to trust any of these receivers when none of them have an 18% target share or better. But again, both Shakir and Keon are definitely viable as like lower end flex plays, but I would prefer to play them as like second flex plays. Buffalo's already been great. So I say, they're probably going to score 30, 34 points. They've scored 40, 30, and 31 so far through 3 games. And yet these 2 wide receivers in effectively 6 combined games, both of them have only 2 games where you've been happy about starting them. So it's pretty difficult to trust, but the upside is there. Next up, we've got Titans at Texans, a very low, lowest on the week, 38.5 point total for a dome game. That's exceptionally low. Texans are also 7-point home favorites. The Titans, that means, has the lowest projected team total in the week, so no team is projected to score fewer points than the Titans. Obviously, that's not good. We don't want to be targeting fantasy players on the team projected to score the fewest points. The Texans defense also limits wide receiver catch rate more than any other team in the NFL. So this is a very, very, very bad spot, especially for the wide receivers. Only player that grades out as viable is Tony Pollard. Even he is only the running back 27 because he gets great volume on the ground, but they just don't throw to him. It was better last week, but he has a 6% target share in the season, so that's not great. Overall, it would be good if you could just bench all Titans players this week, but if you had to play Pollard as a very low-end running back too, you can do it. On the Texans side, actually a pretty decent spot for the ground game, as we saw with Jonathan Taylor last week. Not everyone is Jonathan Taylor, but the Titans are a very good matchup for running backs. It's also just good being a home favorite by a touchdown. It's just much more likely that the running backs see extra volume. Could it be the breakout spot for Woody Marks? I don't know. I don't know that you're really playing Woody Marks, but this is a good spot. Again, you were a touchdown home favorite in a dome against a bad run defense. The script should play out where the Texans get up, they can lean on the running backs, and if those running backs are successful, they will win the game and continue using those running backs. So I think you can definitely play. I'm a Nick Chubb hater this season, just like not thinking the volume's ever going to really be there to be consistent. But this week, you want to play Chubb at lone running back 2, totally fine doing that. Marks, I think, is running back 3. So if you were unbelievably desperate in a deeper format and you had to play him at running back 2, you could do it. And then I would just say Nico is a must start every week. Christian Kirk, low efficiency last week, but if you had to play him as a low end flex play, I think that is fine. The hope is he's going to help out the offense a little bit more because these rookies have just not been able to get onto the field. There's got to be some underlying reason. They're just not ready yet. But that second wide receiver spot has been terrible for the Texans. So the hope is Christian Kirk can kind of help elevate this offense a little bit, open things up more for Nico, open things more up for the running backs, get Woody Marks more involved, and hopefully this can be good. Again, it's the lowest total game of the week, so even though the Texans are still touchdown home favorites, they're not projected to score that many points either, but it's a good matchup. So if you had to use Chubb, Marks, or Kirk, I think they are fine, but I wouldn't call them must starts or even strong starts this week. Next up, we have, and I hate streaming Stroud, so I just never recommend it. Next up, we have Browns at Lions, 44.5 point total. Lions, 9.5 point home favorites. For the Browns, it is obviously a tough spot, being nearly a 10-point road underdog. And it's not like the Lions have a bad defense, right? We just saw what they did to Baltimore, 1 million sacks. In that one, Flacco probably going to drop back 40 plus times. So if that happens, probably not going to hit for a big play, but you should see okay passing volume overall, even if he gets sacked 4 times. If he drops back 42 times, that's 38 potential pass attempts here. Unfortunately, he's not going to scramble. Unfortunately, again, the big plays aren't there. And so even though they're dropping back a lot, everything's close to the line of scrimmage. Nothing is deep downfield. Not many touchdowns being scored. So even if you rack up some volume, it hasn't been that great in fantasy. Judy, Tillman, highly mediocre plays. I probably wouldn't play them. The tight ends have been fine, but they're also splitting the work, which kind of hurts the upside and the floor for both of them. I think the best play on the team is probably Judkins. He's my running back 25 right now. If they want to win this game, they won't. But if they want to win this game, they should lean on him. Hey, you know what? They won last week, right? And no one thought that they would beat the Packers last week. So there's at least a chance. I'll say last week they were home. To go into Detroit and beat the Lions, the Packers are a team that just does this, right? They look really, really good at times, and then all of a sudden they just fall apart and do nothing on offense. So even though the defense was still great, they scored 10 points. They're not going to win that many games when you score 10 points. That is not the Lions. The Lions had a rough week 1 against a really good Packers defense, but it is unlikely, and that one's, again, on the road, it is unlikely that at home the Lions don't score at least 24 points this week. They're probably going to score into the 20s. It's unlikely the Browns can compete with that. But if they want to, it has to come on the back of Judkins. So you're going to need a good Judkins game. I think volume-wise at this point, play him at running back 2 every week. Until Judkins isn't getting a ton of carries and he's going to get 100% of the goal line touches, until that's not happening, play him at running back 2 and just accept that maybe he has some bad games, but he's looked really good, by far their best running back. Again, if you had him, I would just play him at running back 2. And again, the tight ends are fine. You're basically hoping one of them scores, and they're getting good volume and they have an okay matchup, but if they're only going to get 4 or 5 receptions, they're in that general range of streaming tight end and you're praying for a touchdown. Then for the Lions, the Browns do have the best run defense in the NFL. We've been talking about that every week. It'll be interesting to see how that impacts the Lions because they're one of the better run teams in the NFL. You're definitely starting Gibbs, and I would say that it hurts Monty more than Gibbs because Gibbs gets his value from receptions. He can rack up a lot of those. He doesn't necessarily need heavy rushing volume the way we're Monty kind of needs heavy rushing volume to hit, so he's hurt by this run defense more than Gibbs is. But yeah, I mean, you're playing Jahmyr Gibbs. I'd still be fine playing Monty as a low-end running back too. Obviously start Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think J-Mo's always a good high upside flex play. Laporta right now, tight end 14, so it depends what else you have. As is always the case for the Lions, and especially when they're at home, as a tiebreaker, I just want to play the Detroit Lion player. They have immense ceilings. The touchdown upside is always there in any matchup, and so if it is close, play the Lions player. Next up, we have Commanders at Falcons, 45-point total. Commanders 1-point road favorites. For the Commanders, we'll have to watch the injury report kind of closely. I do think Jaden Daniels is going to play. We probably won't know until the weekend, but I think he's going to play this weekend. If he doesn't play, just play Mariota. If you have Jaden Daniels, you should have added Mariota last week and just always play Mariota if Daniels is not out there. The other big injury news, though, is Terry McLaurin. He was meeting with a specialist. It was a core muscle specialist for his quad injury. So a lot of speculation that this might be a worse injury than they're letting on. I don't know yet. I'll see. I record this, midday on Thursday. We'll see later in the day. Does he practice? Is there more reports on this injury? Kind of feels like to me he's not going to play this week. If he's out, Debo's a must start, and I would probably say Ertz is a must start too. I would not care about the other wide receivers, but I would care about watching their usage. I'm excited about Jalen Lane long term. And if we do get like a long-term injury for Terry McLaurin here, and there's an opportunity for Jalen Lane to potentially break out, I'll be excited about that. I have him stashed in Dynasty, but for like this week, you would not be playing him even in a deep format. So for right now, it's play Debo, play Ertz, play whoever is starting at quarterback. And then Krosky Merritt, my running back 33 right now, it's definitely a winnable game. We just saw the Falcons lose 30-0 to the Panthers. So you could definitely see the Commanders go out here, win big, and the running backs hit. But I don't love how big of a timeshare it is. Krosky Merritt also showed up in the injury report. That seems like it's nothing, but monitor that as well. Probably benching, honestly, all the running backs, but I'll say I have Krosky Merritt in Dynasty, and I do have to play him this week, so he's not a bad play. Running back 33 isn't like a bad play at running back 2, and I think it's in my like second flex spot there. Then for the Falcons, they were pathetic last week. It might just turn out that Penix is bad. Like, again, we had a 3-game sample last season, so we didn't really know how good Penix was going to be. Seems like he could be hitting on the low end of that range of outcomes, but to be fair, it's been 3 games. But yeah, he has 1 passing touchdown this season. He has a 58% completion rate. He has barely over 200 passing yards per game, which is also bad because he doesn't scramble. Like if someone has over 200 passing yards, but they run for 30, 40 yards a game, you're like, okay, that kind of evens out. He has like 201 passing yards per game, and he doesn't run the ball at all. So if he keeps playing this bad, it is going to impact the skilled players on the Falcons. For now, though, Bijan must start. London, like a low end to mid range wide receiver 2. I think you just kind of have to play him if you got him. Pitts, tight end 10, higher floor than we've expected for Pitts, but because everything is so close to the line of scrimmage. So the ceiling hasn't really been there, but in a full PPR league, if you can kind of expect, a decent amount of targets as a baseline and high catch rate because the ADOT is so low, that's not a bad play. But again, tight end 10, so it's in that general streaming range. And then Mooney, wide receiver 43. I think there's going to be times where lean on Mooney. I'm just a little bit scared that Penix is just bad. And so if he's bad, we don't necessarily want to be going to these secondary players. So I think this week, for the most part, Bijan, London, you are going to have to make a decision on DraftKings with Pitts, though. He's very cheap. You play cheap tight ends when you can on DraftKings. I can promise you I'll make the wrong decision. So maybe just like ask me what I'm doing come Sunday. And if I'm playing him, you should bench him. But yeah, I can never get Kyle Pitts correct. So just do the opposite of what I'm doing. But I haven't made my lineup yet, so I don't know. Next up, we have Eagles at Bucs, 43.5 point total. Eagles 3.5 point road favorites. Should be a really good game for the Eagles. They finally threw the ball last week, so all of A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert found the end zone. All of them had decent days, although I'll say Dallas Goedert, that was his only catch, was a touchdown. It's a little annoying that it took them being down big in the first half for them to finally just decide to throw the ball. Maybe this will show them that they can win games through the air as well, but I'm not overly optimistic. So hopefully the Bucs can push them. Hopefully we get, another decent spot for these pass catchers, because it's a good spot. The Bucs historically stop the run, allow passing production, and given how banged up the Bucs offense is, it's likely that they kind of struggle to sustain drives. And so there's a lot of potential here for Eagles players to do really good. I would say Saquon and Hurts are obviously weekly must starts. A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, more wide receiver 2s until we see the production happen again. I'm going to be a little bit nervous that it goes away. And then Goddard, 10 and 15. I know it's really tough to trust the Eagles pass catchers, but again, because of the pass funnel nature of the Bucs defense, they are in a really good spot if they decide to throw it. And it only took 226 passing yards last week for everyone to have a good day. So we're not asking for 300 passing yards from Jalen Hurts. We're asking for 200. And that doesn't feel like that much to ask, just given that, all of the passing volume flows through these 3 guys. I do still think it is somewhat possible that A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith were just more injured than they let on late in camp. Because again, when we see these injuries late in camp, we typically see these guys start slower, and both these guys missed a good chunk of the end of camp. And then when you watch their routes in week 1, it was a lot of decoy stuff. And so maybe they just were not healthy in weeks 1, 2, or weren't fully ramped up yet. And maybe they did so last week. I don't know. That's at least a hope. But I don't know how much I even believe that because they still didn't throw the ball last week until they were down by a lot. So at any rate, last week was a positive. You would love to see it repeat this week to gain some confidence and ranking them higher moving forward. For the Bucs, Evans is going to miss this game, probably going to miss the next, 3 to 4. We'll see if they put him on IR, but he'll miss the next couple of games. We will see about Godwin and Wirfs. That's going to come down to Sunday. I feel like they're going to be game time decisions. They really need Wirfs back on the offensive line. These now 3 offensive linemen that they are missing. So if they don't have him back, it's probably going to be another week where there's not a lot of running room for Bucky Irving, where Baker kind of has to get the ball out pretty quickly. I think regardless, you're playing Igbuka. Like, even if you had Godwin return, there is no chance in the world that Godwin goes out there in his first game, has like a full snap share, and gets a ton of usage. So you are playing Igbuka this week. He's probably going to have a good game. At a minimum, he's going to see elite volume. And then you're playing Bucky Irving because even if they don't have these offensive linemen, there is enough volume here so you just have to play him. I know the efficiency has been rough. It is because the offensive linemen are injured, so you're really hoping Wirfs can play. But if not, even if Godwin is out, Wirfs is out, at least next week, it's looking very good for their return. But yeah, play Igbuka, play Bucky. Probably don't play anyone else. Don't stream Baker. Don't stream these backup tight ends, wide receivers, none of them. Bucky and Igbuka. That's all you're playing on the Bucs. Next up, we've got Panthers at Patriots, 43.5 point total. Patriots, 5.5 point home favorites. For the Panthers, I don't care if they scored 30 points last week. This is still a very difficult offense to trust. Assuming Tet is good to go, I think he is. I think you're playing him every single week. Only other play you can consider is Chuba Hubbard. I think he's fine as a low-end running back too. I think obviously there's a chance that the Panthers can win this game. They're 5.5 point underdogs, but it's New England. They can always, beat themselves. So you could still see the Panthers win this spot. It's not great to see him losing goal line touches to Rico Dowdle, but I'm willing to chalk that last week up to blowout run. It came when they were up 20-0. It's easily possible that if this were a closer game, Chuba would have been in at that spot. It's still not good to see. You'd still love to see Chuba out there all the time. But I still think we should expect about 15 or more touches from Chuba. I would say 15 to 18 touches. That makes him a low-end running back too, even in what's not an amazing spot for running backs. And in deep leagues, Tommy Tremble is in an awful play. Jatavian Sanders is not going to play this week. If the Panthers, get down late, we could see Tremble rack up some receptions, but that would only be like a DFS play or like a 14-16 team full PPR league. Then for the Patriots, I really hope that we get some sort of indication on the running back split this week. Stevenson lost them the game last week with his fumbles, and then Gibson didn't exactly help with a fumble of his own. It's not like Henderson played amazing in the second half, so that all happens in the first half. They come out in the second half, and Henderson is close to a featured running back because that is what happens when people fumble. When people fumble multiple times, including at the 1 foot line, you do not play in the second half. It's interesting because Stevenson basically got the start last week, and he was not featured because they still use Gibson, but he got a lot more run to start the game because they were benching Henderson for his pass protection issues the previous week. It seems like this week you'd imagine it flips whenever someone loses you the game because of their fumbles and the other running back is, a second round pick for you. It is likely that Travion Henderson gets to start this week, that he gets a decent amount of touches until he fumbles or he does something bad. So we'll see. It'd be great to get some sort of indication before the weekend because this is the single best matchup for running back yards per carry. So I will watch the news. It is a great spot. They are home favorites, which will not happen that many times, especially 5.5 point home favorites. If Henderson is going to get the start, he's going to have receptions. He's going to have a lot of upside in what is one of the best possible matchups you can have for a running back. So right now he's in running back 30. If it comes out that he's definitely getting the start, I think you can definitely play him as a low-end running back too. Aside from him, I would not trust the wide receivers. Drake May, I think you play him every week. He's my quarterback 8. And Hunter Henry, I think you just play him every week as well as my tight end 6. Final 1 o'clock game is going to be Chargers at Giants. 44 point total. Chargers 6.5 point road favorites. For the Chargers, Najee done for the season. So While I think that the Chargers are going to look to acquire on the running back, I don't know who that's going to be. I don't know how talented they're going to be, and I don't think that has enough time to happen this week. So Hampton should be close to featured this week. You are playing him as a low-end running back 1. The Chargers swap to a pass-first offense, and you would think, right, to start the year, that if I told you the Chargers would be one of the more pass-heavy teams in the NFL, that they'd be 3-0, that they'd be looking absolutely incredible, that Ladd would have been a slam dunk pick in round 3. And if I also added on that no team has been utilizing their wide receivers more than the Chargers, you'd be like, oh my goodness, was he worth a first-round pick? Keenan Allen is currently 6th among all wide receivers in usage, and Quentin Johnston is 7th. So I would call Keenan and Quentin must starts this week, while Ladd is only a very strong start. I think I would still call him must start. Like, given where you drafted him, given the matchup, given the volume here, Ladd's going to have a big play soon. Like, he's going to have a big play, a big game. Something is going to happen to where Ladd goes out there, has 9 for 120 touchdown, and he's back. Like, I just don't think all season it's going to be Keenan and Quentin every single week. I think the volume is enough here to where I think you have to keep playing Ladd McConkey. I know it's been frustrating. It's not like he's not scoring. He's still getting some production each week, but he's going to have a big game soon, and I wouldn't want to miss that. I would be playing him every week. Also, just watch the snaps for Oronde Gadsden. You are definitely not playing him even in a deeper format, but I'm hoping we see an increase to his snaps. He played really well in his debut last week. He had a ton of hype in camp. So watch the snaps. Hope it goes up to like 40, 45%, and maybe in the future we can play him, but we're not playing him this week. And then obviously start Justin Herbert. Giants side, Jackson Dart will make his start this week, his first start in the NFL. He's someone that we're actually probably going to use at times. I don't think this week in his first start against a really good Chargers defense is the spot where we want to be streaming him, but he's got pretty solid mobility. He's got explosive playmakers. So against bad defenses, in good spots, I think we can actually stream him this season, especially in Superflex leagues. But again, I don't think you're playing him against the Chargers this weekend. I think Malik Neighbors is an auto start. I think Cam Scatteraboo is a must start this week. We know Tyron Tracy Jr. is not going to play. Scatteraboo is going to be close to featured. He's going to have a great role in the receiving game. He was basically the entire offense last week. And while I don't think that necessarily happens, again, it is very clear that he's great in the receiving game, great at the goal line, and that's going to have a lot of value in fantasy. This is why we were scared of Tyron Tracy Jr. in drafts this season, because if Cam Scatteraboo is great in the receiving game and at the goal line, those are the two most valuable areas in fantasy. And if you win those two jobs, you win the backfield in fantasy. The only other play is Wan'Dale Robinson. I would like to see the connection. Right now, he's a wide receiver 31. So as things stand, you could definitely play him in the flex spot. Ideally, I would just like to see Jackson Dart make a start. See what the target shares are, see if he's also hitting downfield with Wan'Dale, see if he's also giving him a decent target share, because there's just a lot of variance when you have a rookie come in that we just don't know how he's going to play, how he's going to distribute the targets. Doesn't matter for Neighbors, you're definitely playing him, but for Wan'Dale, I would prefer if we could see it, and we'll see if there's any sort of news kind of surrounding this team in terms of like how they expect Dart to play, and just in terms of like pass run split kind of stuff. 4 o'clock games kick off with Jaguars at 49ers, 47-point total. 49ers, 3.5-point home favorites. For the Jaguars, San Fran isn't exactly a defense that we're looking to attack. They're a very strong defense, but this is also a good enough offense to where for a lot of these guys, I think you just play them most weeks and most matchups. Diami Brown, that injury is going to open up more for Parker Washington. Apparently, the Jaguars do not feel like using Travis Hunter as a full-time wide receiver, so they're not expecting his snaps to increase. Just seems a little bit odd, given that the offense can be really good. It just seems like they're not clicking. It's like, well, maybe give the most athletic player on your offense the ball a little bit more often. I don't know. Crazy thought there. Have to think, like, you lose snaps from Diami Brown. Yes, that's going to increase snaps for Parker Washington, but you just have to think, given that the usage has been there for Brian Thomas Jr., we know the player is good. There is no doubt in my mind that Brian Thomas Jr. is a great wide receiver. you have to think an explosion is coming at some point. I don't know if it's going to happen this week, but I just don't see a world where you bench Brian Thomas Jr. because every week he has immense upside. And if you lose another wide receiver on this team, there's only so many wide receivers they can throw to, and they are utilizing wide receivers a ton. I would say you're probably not playing Parker Washington, but he does benefit the most of any player here in a deeper format. If you're like a 16-team league with 3 wide receiver spots, there are much worse plays than Parker Washington this weekend. So again, I'd probably still bench Hunter, bench Parker Washington this week, but they're not bad plays, and it's definitely possible one of them produces this week. I will also still die on a hill saying that Tootin is an extremely talented running back, but I will also die on a hill saying Etienne has also been playing very, very good this season. He has done nothing, Etienne, to lose his starting job, so I would absolutely keep playing Travis Etienne, and I would just keep Tootin stashed. I would absolutely not be dropping Tootin under any circumstances. Only other play here, because I don't think you're playing Trevor Lawrence, is Brenton Strange. He's just kind of like a mid to low end tight end 2 this week. It's like his usage is very good, but San Fran is a very, very bad matchup for tight ends. For San Fran, who knows? Pearsall's going to play. Like, they kind of interviewed him after, not practicing. And he's like, yeah, if there was a game, I'd be playing. So he's going to play. But we really just have to see what these injuries are going to shape out as. Like, Juwan and Pearsall both missing practice. Both quarterbacks are missing time. Like, I have no idea who's going to start a quarterback, who the starting wide receiver is going to be. Christian McCaffrey is the only healthy player on offense right now, which is hilarious because 80 to 85% of you just like straight up refuse to draft him because of injuries, only to watch him be the single most valuable player in all of fantasy, as we said would happen if he stayed healthy. I think we sort of just have to like see who's healthy on Sunday and kind of go from there. I would say you probably just want to start either wide receiver that's healthy. Like, I think both Juwan and Pearsall, if they're out there, you're playing them at wide receiver. But I would definitely not play any of the other backup wide receivers. I would not be playing any backup tight ends. If we see third string quarterback play, maybe we can reevaluate. But yeah, I'll update the projections. It's just kind of impossible to know right now because there's so many moving parts. And play McCaffrey, obviously. Next up, we have Colts at Rams. 49.5 point total. Rams 3.5 point home favorites. For the Colts, they have exceeded every single expectation so far this season. They've been a really, really fun team to watch. I'm hoping that continues this week because this could be a really, really exciting game to watch. Jonathan Taylor, obviously a must start. I would throw Tyler Warren in there as well. Bit of a down game for Tyler Warren last week, but they destroyed the Titans. Jonathan Taylor had a huge game, over 100 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground. Like, I would say it was much more game script related for Tyler Warren not doing well than anything. 2 toughest calls here are with Daniel Jones and Michael Pittman Jr. Jones has been projecting well every single week, but this week, at least to start the week projections, only the quarterback 18. So that's been by far the lowest of any week so far. If you've been streaming him and you dropped your other quarterbacks and you're like, oh, I didn't know he'd project badly this week. Should I like drop him or pick someone else up? I'd say no. Like, if you've been relying on Daniel Jones, just play him again this week. But obviously, that at the Rams is not a good spot for quarterbacks. And then for Pittman, I think he's a solid flex play. He's got a really strong 21.6% target share on the season. He's got really good red zone usage so far, too. He's got 2 touchdowns in 3 weeks. He's been really efficient on his targets. So I would say, like, the efficiencies can only go so far. He's going to eventually have a bad game, a really inefficient game or two. But if you want to just keep riding the production for Pittman while it lasts, I don't see a problem with that. Downs, unfortunately, wouldn't play him. You can honestly drop him in a decent amount of formats just because his role is the most impacted by Tyler Warren. It's what we talked about over the summer. This is why we liked Pittman so much, because Pittman's going to be out there every play. But when you go into 3 wide receiver sets, when you have, plays designed to go to Tyler Warren, that directly takes away from Josh Downs. It doesn't take away from Pittman. Pittman is going to be out there every play, and you'll want the players who are out there every play. On the Rams, Puka and Adams are weekly must-starts. They're probably both going to finish as top 10 wide receivers, and I do think Puka will probably end up as the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy. Every single pass attempt goes to these 2, and they have been crushing on that volume. I would also call Kyron a must-start. It's not great seeing Corum get these drives, this red zone usage. And Kyren is definitely not the high-end running back one he's been in the past because the volume has been worse. But Corum is still not taking enough work for me to ever bench Kyren in any format. So I think you are definitely still playing him. And then Stafford right now grades out as an okay streaming option. I typically don't love using him just because they could easily score 2 touchdowns on the ground. So where he only throws for 1, throws for like 230 yards. And you're like, wow, that was disappointing because he's going to have 0 rushing yards to boot. But he's fine if you wanted to play him this week. Next up, we've got Bears at Raiders, 47.5 point total. Raiders, 1.5 point home favorites. For the Bears, Caleb is struggling with accuracy issues this season, but Ben Johnson's play calling has mostly been able to mask that. They don't get to face Dallas every week, but given how this offense is playing because of Ben Johnson, Caleb is a must start, and Rome Odunze is as well. They have a great connection, and Odunze has been featured near the goal line. That has not been the case for DJ Moore. That connection hasn't been there. Only a 16.7% target share in the season. No role in the red zone. I'm starting to think these rumors that DJ Moore can be traded are actually real. Like, I don't know. Like, if you're not going to use DJ Moore, another team will. And you've got Luther Burden just kind of waiting there to be used more. If you maybe have a plan at some point to utilize Colson Loveland and the tight ends, it wouldn't be the end of the world if you got something in return for DJ Moore and you kind of use the offense a little bit more efficiently and just not needed to give them any targets to Moore. So I don't know. I think there's merit to it. I honestly think it would probably be a good thing in fantasy if he was traded away. And it would definitely be a good thing for all of the Bears players. Right now, I think DJ Moore is my wide receiver 30 on the week. I don't think you can trust Luther Burden in the starting lineups right now. It's still, even in his explosion last week, played less than 30% of the snaps, but definitely we're stashing Luther Burden for that upside later in the year. I also think Swift is a low-end running back too. He's been pretty bad this year. I do think Monangai is going to start earning more and more workload because, again, Swift has not been a good running back. He's been okay in fantasy, but in terms of like NFL, he has not been good. For now, though, he's still the lead back. He still gets enough usage where I'd play him as a low-end running back too. And then just keep an eye on the status of the tight ends. There's a chance that neither of them is able to play this weekend. Maybe that would help out DJ Moore a bit. I'll adjust the rankings accordingly, but they already haven't been throwing to the tight ends at all. So it's not like both of them, being out opens up like 25% of targets. It probably opens up like 15% of targets, and some of those would just go to the third string tight end. So again, I don't think it's the end of the world there, or I don't think it like really helps anyone out that much, but of course it will help out a little bit. Then for the Raiders, the Bears are a very plus matchup. Most people also probably be surprised to see that the Raiders are favorites this week. They're home favorites in, playing a really bad defense. So it's a good spot for the Raiders. I would consider all of Genty, Bowers, and Myers must starts, and that Geno Smith is a really, really strong streaming option. We talked about him in the streaming video. If you kind of went after him on free agency, I'd play him this week. I know Genty has been really frustrating, but he is far too talented to bench. He's going to have a breakout game at some point. If you are not playing Genty, you might as well trade him and get something for him. Only 3 teams boost yards per carry more than the Bears. This is a good spot for Genty. The final 4 o'clock game is going to be probably the one most people are most excited for this week, and that's Ravens at Chiefs, 48.5 point total. Ravens, 2.5 point road favorites. For the Ravens, Lamar, Henry, Flowers, all must starts. We will see with Isaiah Likely what his status is this weekend. I would not play him in his first week back, but that will determine the ranking on Mark Andrews. Mark finally had a good game in week 3, but if Likely is active, that's really going to hurt his fantasy value. It is also worth noting that Mark Andrews has been completely shut down by the Kansas City Chiefs in his 6 career games. He has half PPR point totals of 0, 3, 3.7, 8.2, a nice 8.2 game, then 2.4 and 3.5. So I am not pumped about chasing the points for Mark Andrews. Even if Likely is out, I would stick to the core of Lamar, Henry, and Zay. Then on the Kansas City side, their offense has been rough so far this season. 21, 17, and 22 points scored. That's not very good. That is not what we're used to seeing for Kansas City. Xavier Worthy is expected back, but Do you trust him, right? Like, he's one hit away from being done for the season. If he's back, you can't trust the backup wide receivers. Kelsey looks like he's 100 years old. You're praying for a touchdown with him. You definitely cannot trust the running backs. Like, I don't know. Do you really want to play anyone on Kansas City? I would say Mahomes. Mahomes, like, has been good in fantasy because he's run the ball a ton. If he has Worthy back, that elevates his ceiling. And now he's got a couple different players that can hit downfield. But I do not trust anyone on Kansas City. So I don't think any of them are that great of plays. But if you had to play Worthy and you're like, Nick, I don't care, it's Worthy or it's like Parker Washington, I'd probably still play Xavier Worthy at that point and just hope that he's okay. Hope that every time he takes a hit, he gets up. But obviously, you're not going to feel great just holding your breath every time he takes a hit because you're hoping he takes hits because you're hoping he actually gets the ball this week. Sunday night game is going to be another really good one. I would say, honestly, I'm more excited about this game than the other one, Packers at Cowboys, just because I kind of want to see Micah Parsons get like 4 sacks this week. This game has a 47.5 point total. Packers 7-point road favorites. For the Packers, Dallas probably has the worst defense in the league. So I would say it's a similar thing that I always say with the Lions. If it is close between a Packers player and someone else, just play the Packers player. This defense is so bad in Dallas, and the game being at Dallas at least gives this game a chance of being close. Jacobs, Tucker Kraft, clear must starts. I know Kraft didn't do much last week when he was banged up. He's still probably a little bit banged up this week, but he's still going to be out there a lot. Touchdown potential is there. I would play him. And I would probably throw Jordan Love, honestly, into the must-start category as well. We almost never call him a must-start, but against this defense, the yardage and touchdown ceilings are immense, so I would play him. And then with the wide receivers, I think all three are playable. I would say, again, in your classic, like 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league, I don't know that you have to play any Packers wide receivers, but in a 3 wide receiver league or a 2 flex league, certainly as that like 4th spot, maybe that 4th wide receiver, they're definitely a little bit appealing. Dobbs, I'd say, is like the most appealing, followed by Golden and then Wicks. But I also have a feeling that this could be the breakout game for Matthew Golden. So again, if it's close, not if you have like the wide receiver 20, because these guys still grade out pretty poorly overall, but if you've got like a couple players projected within a point of each other and one of them is on the Packers wide receiver room, I would play the Packers wide receiver if you can. Then for Dallas, no CeeDee Lamb does open up a ton of targets for this offense, but we also need to remember that Green Bay has a top 3 defense this season, maybe the best defense in the NFL. So it's not like Dallas is going to go out here and rip off 40 points. They're going to struggle this week. I think Ferguson is an absolute must start. I would probably say that Javonte and Pickens are as well, but maybe I could just call them strong starts. The efficiency is not going to be there. But you have to think, if Dallas wants to move the ball at all, it's not like they're going to feature like Tolbert, right? They're not going to feature Turpin, like Flournoy. Like, these guys are not going to be featured on offense. There's going to be a million targets to Ferguson. Every time they get in the red zone, they're going to use Pickens. They're going to use Javonte Williams. Hopefully they don't keep using Miles Sanders as much. But I just think volume-wise, the expectation for the volume is enough. Only my running back 28 for Javonte Williams. Only my wide receiver 28 for Pickens. But again, if I had them, I just think I'd still play them because they kind of have to do good or this team will get destroyed. The first of 2 Monday night games will be Jets at Dolphins, 44.5 point total. Dolphins 2.5 point home favorites. For the Jets, I'm pretty sure Fields will play this week, but you'll want confirmation on that before Monday. You can't go into Monday not knowing, because then if he doesn't play, you just like lose, and you can't have that happening. So again, I think he's going to play. I think we're going to know, but confirm that. If he plays, play him. The Dolphins defense is a joke, and Fields has enough mobility to, even in a tough matchup, get there enough on the ground to where he doesn't need that great of passing numbers, but he should have good passing numbers against a terrible Dolphins defense. I think you're also playing Breece Hall. I think you're also playing Garrett Wilson this week. Wilson has a 37.5% target share on the season, and Hall has taken a step back after a really good game in week 1, but he's still such a big part of the offense. This is a very winnable game for the Jets. I think you are playing him. I think you're playing that core again. Fields, Hall, and Wilson. I would play them all this week. If you're not playing Breece Hall this week, you might as well trade him. Then for the Dolphins, start their studs. Achane, Hill, Waddle, I think all should be in starting lineups this week. Everyone else should not be. They've started to like kind of figure out this split with Ollie and Achane that's been working out. Don't freak out that like Ollie's getting some carries and some carries in the red zone. Number one, they should be doing that. He's a more efficient running back in the red zone than Achane. But also, it doesn't really even matter. Like, obviously, you would love Achane to get those goal line touches, but the kid has nearly a 24% target share. Like, you don't need the goal line touches if he has a 24% target share. You are playing him every single time that Tua is healthy. The toughest call is with Waddle. He's been wide receiver 29, so you don't have to play him, but I think I would. He's going to hit for a big play eventually. I think that will happen soon. I don't know that it's going to happen this week, but the touchdowns have been there. He's a big part of the offense. It's a game where I don't think the Jets are some defense where we're like terrified of playing other people against them. You are at home. I just think you got Waddle playing. Then finally, Monday night game, Bengals at Broncos, 44-point total. Broncos 7.5-point home favorites, obviously because Joe Burrow will not be playing. For the Bengals, they got embarrassed by an elite Vikings defense last week, and now they have to travel to Denver to take on the Broncos. So a little bit rough. I mean, the first two starts of the season for Browning being against the Vikings and then at Denver is very, very difficult. I don't think I'd play T again this week. I actually am benching him in a 2 wide receiver league with 3 flex spots. And again, I said I'm benching him for Jordan Addison. He's outside my top 40 wide receivers. You're praying for a touchdown. The injury impacts him the most. They will get screens. They will get carries to Chase Brown. They will get close targets and screens to Jamar Chase. They're not going to throw screen passes to T. Higgins. He has to hit downfield and in the red zone. This is a really tough matchup if you're asking him to do that. So I would not play him, but I would play Chase Brown and Jamar Chase. I'm not expecting a huge game from either of them, but Chase Brown should be in line for 17 to 20 touches if the game stays close. And Jamar Chase, should just never be benched, right? You can take a 1-yard screen pass to the house at any time. I know these guys have disappointed. That's sort of what happens when you lose your quarterback in week 2. But better days ahead. They're not going to play the Vikings and the Broncos every week. So not great expectations this week, but hopefully in the future they can be better. Then for the Broncos, they've been fairly disappointing this season, but a home matchup with the Bengals should fix that. I would consider all of Bo Nix, J.K. Dobbins, Courtland Sutton must starts. And if you were really desperate, which I am in one league, if you had to play Harvey, you had to play Troy Franklin to get by, I don't think that's the worst play in the world. Like, there's a chance here that Denver pulls the Vikings. Maybe they don't win by 38 points, but that they have this game handled by halftime. They can run the ball a ton in the second half. If that is the case, I would imagine we see a decent amount of touches for the running backs. Perhaps Harvey can finally have his breakout game. The Bengals do not have a good defense. This is a home spot for the Broncos. If they can win by multiple scores, we should see good volume for the running backs. And then with Franklin, it's more so like if they can score 30, 34 points, maybe he gets involved in the red zone. So I'm not saying you have to start either one of them, but if you needed to play Harvey to get by this week, I think that there are worse opportunities to do so. So if you want to see my full projections as I update them throughout the week, you can see that on my website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. I have the second most accurate rankings in the industry through 3 weeks with over 200 experts competing. So the rankings have been spot on this season. So if you want to make the best start sit decisions possible, then follow my rankings again on the website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. Please leave a like if you are still here. Please subscribe to the channel if you are new, both on YouTube and Spotify. But that, my friends, is the end of this one, and thank you for watching.